You're exhausted from a war that isn't real. Right now, as you read this, you're battling invisible enemies. Not your boss, not your bills, not even your circumstances. You're fighting something far more elusive. Problems that exist only in your mind. Alan Watts, the philosopher who spent decades translating ancient wisdom for modern minds, discovered something revolutionary. Most of our suffering comes from attacking ghosts that vanish the moment we see them clearly. Think about last night when you couldn't sleep. What kept you awake? Probably not a genuine emergency. More likely, your mind was churning through scenarios that might happen, conversations that could go wrong, or problems that exist primarily between your ears. You were shadowboxing with phantoms. This isn't positive thinking or motivational fluff. This is something far more radical. Watts discovered that the very way we frame existence, as a problem to be solved, a battle to be won, is what creates our misery. We're like someone trying to bite their own teeth. The ghost of the survival instinct. Take what we call the survival instinct. We've been told since childhood that we're driven by this mysterious force, that life is fundamentally about surviving, competing, staying ahead. But Watts asked a simple question. Where's the evidence for this instinct? People survive until they don't. That's it. No mystical force required. When someone dies, where did their survival instinct go? Did it just disappear? Or was it never there in the first place? You see this ghost everywhere. Sarah works 80-hour weeks because she believes she's driven by survival needs. But look closer. She's surviving just fine on 40 hours. The extra 40 aren't about survival. They're about feeding a phantom called security that can never be satisfied because it doesn't actually exist. Marcus stays in a soul-crushing job because he thinks he has to survive. But millions of people survive in different jobs. The have to is a ghost. He's not fighting for survival. He's fighting an imaginary battle against an imaginary threat, the ghost of motivation. We constantly ask, what's motivating you? As if there's some hidden engine inside people, some invisible force pushing them around like marionettes. Watts saw this as another phantom. There's no motivation hiding behind your actions. There's just action. When you're hungry, you eat. No mysterious hunger motivation required. When you're tired, you sleep. No sleep drive needed as explanation. But we love our ghosts. We say, I'm driven by ambition, or I'm motivated by fear, as if these are real things controlling us. What if there's no driver? What if you're just living, responding, flowing? And the story about what's motivating you is something you add afterward. Jennifer spent years trying to find her true motivation in therapy. Was she driven by childhood trauma, fear of abandonment, need for approval? She dissected every action looking for the ghost in the machine, until one day she realized, maybe she just likes helping people. No trauma required, no hidden motivation necessary, just liking something and doing it. The ghost of the separate self. Here's the biggest ghost of all. The idea that you're a thing inside your body, separate from everything else, looking out at a hostile world you must conquer or defend against. Watts realized this. Separate self is like the emperor's new clothes. Everyone agrees it exists, but nobody can point to it. Where exactly are you located? In your brain? Which part? In your thoughts? The thoughts come and go. In your memories? But you can't remember most of your life. The more you look for this separate self, the more it disappears. You're not a thing inside your body looking out at the world. You're part of the world looking at itself. The skin doesn't separate you from the environment. It connects you to it. Every breath you take was part of someone else moments ago. Every atom in your body was forged in ancient stars. David spent his whole life feeling like he was fighting against the world. Work was adversarial. Relationships were conflicts to win. Even exercise was about conquering his body. He was exhausted from this constant warfare until he had a simple realization. He wasn't fighting the world. He was part of it. The resistance he felt was like a wave fighting the ocean it's made of. The ghost of control. We think we're in control of our lives, that we're the authors of our destiny, the captains of our ship. Another phantom. Look at your last thought. Did you choose it? Can you decide what to think next and stick to it for 5 minutes? You don't control your heartbeat, your digestion, your dreams, or even most of your thoughts. You certainly don't control other people, the weather, the economy, or global events. Yet we exhaust ourselves trying to control things that are fundamentally uncontrollable. The ghost of control keeps us in a constant state of tension. We think if we just plan enough, worry enough, micromanage enough, we can force life to go according to our script. But life doesn't read scripts. Amanda built elaborate spreadsheets tracking every aspect of her life: finances, fitness, relationships, career goals. She had 5-year plans with quarterly reviews. She felt like she was taking control. But anxiety consumed her whenever reality deviated from her plans. She was fighting the ghost of control, trying to turn the flowing river of life into a still pond. The ghost of problems. This is where Watts made his most radical observation. Life itself isn't a problem to be solved. Problems exist only in the realm of thought, in the space between what is and what we think should be. You wake up in the morning and immediately your mind starts generating problems. I need to lose weight. I should call my mother. I have to figure out my career. But these aren't problems in the same way a flat tire is a problem. They're mental constructs, stories about how reality should be different than it is. Real problems have solutions. Ghosts don't. That's why we keep spinning our wheels, going in circles, repeating the same patterns. We're trying to solve unsolvable non-problems. Take loneliness. We treat it as a problem. How do I solve my loneliness? But loneliness isn't a mechanical problem with a technical solution. It's a feeling that arises in certain conditions, just like hunger or tiredness. You don't solve hunger. You eat when you're hungry. You don't solve loneliness. You connect when you feel like connecting. The pattern behind all ghosts. Watts discovered something fascinating. All these ghosts follow the same pattern. They arise when we try to explain what's happening by inventing hidden forces, separate entities, or mysterious motivations behind the scenes. Instead of saying it's raining, we invent ghosts. The clouds are making it rain. Instead of saying I'm walking, we create phantoms. I decided to walk because I'm motivated by health concerns driven by childhood trauma about body image. The rain doesn't need clouds to make it rain. Rain is what clouds do. You don't need motivation to walk. Walking is what living bodies do when they feel like moving. This isn't semantic nitpicking. These ghost stories we tell ourselves create real suffering. When you believe you're driven by unconscious forces, controlled by past traumas, or fighting against a hostile universe, you feel powerless, anxious, and exhausted. The liberation. When you see through these ghosts, something extraordinary happens. The constant internal warfare stops. You're no longer fighting invisible enemies or solving impossible problems. You're just living. This doesn't make you passive or unmotivated. Rivers aren't passive, but they don't fight gravity. Birds aren't unmotivated, but they don't need a reason to fly. They flow and soar because that's what rivers and birds do. You might still work, love, create, and strive, but without the phantom burden of thinking you must, should, or have to. Without the ghost story of a separate self fighting a hostile world. Without the illusion that life is a problem requiring your constant vigilance to solve. Tom had been in therapy for years exploring his issues: daddy problems, attachment styles, core wounds, limiting beliefs. One day he stopped looking for problems to solve and ghosts to heal. He discovered that his so-called issues were just thoughts that came and went like weather. He wasn't broken and didn't need fixing. He was just human, living and responding moment by moment. The ultimate insight. Here's what Watts saw that changes everything. You are not separate from what's happening to you. You are what's happening. The universe isn't something you're in. You're something the universe is doing. Like a wave is something the ocean is doing. This isn't mystical poetry. It's as practical as breathing. When you realize you're not fighting life but living it, not solving existence but experiencing it, the ghosts disappear. Not because you've defeated them, but because you see they were never there. The problems you've been wrestling with, most of them vanish when you stop believing in the ghost stories that created them. The battles you've been fighting, they end when you realize there was never an enemy. You're not broken and don't need fixing. You're not lost and don't need finding. You're not separate and don't need connecting. You're already whole, already found, already connected. You just forgot because you were too busy fighting ghosts. The war is over. It never began. Welcome to life without phantoms. If these ideas stirred something deep within you, if you felt the pull toward a more authentic existence, you're not alone in this journey. Subscribe to School of Philosophe and ring the notification bell to join thousands of free thinkers exploring the deepest questions of human existence. Each day we dive into the minds of history's greatest philosophers. Your awakening mind deserves nothing less.